Good evening, sports fans, and welcome to another edition of Tuesday Night Live, brought to you by CrowCast, of course, proudly sponsored by Ryan at Smith Partners Real Estate up there at Golden Grove, also the boys at Down to Earth Electrical, Scorpus's YouTube channel Hardware Unboxed, and our wonderful patrons as well. And I must say good evening to everyone on Spreaker. Thanks very much for joining us, and also those on Facebook. And my partners in crime tonight, Peter J. How you going, Peter?
I'm very well, Fiend. How are you, mate?
Not too bad, not too bad. And Macca, how are you travelling, mate?
Oh, a little bit roughly tonight. Got a bit of a throbbing headache, and so if I took more bullshit than usual, that's my excuse.
Fair call. And Donkey?
Oh, yeah, look, good to be with you. Good to be with all the listeners tonight.
Yeah, thanks, John Laws.
You're sounding calm, Donkey. You're sounding calm, which is good.
Oh, shit. Well,
Resigned.
Resigned. It's that sense of resignation. Well, look, let's not piss about. Let's get straight into some news, shall we? Take it away, Peter.
Not much happening in the way of tribunal this week, but the AFL still finds a way to give us some comic relief. And I see just in the last short period of time, we see some classic stuff coming out of AFL House with Gillon McLachlan urging Stephen Coniglio to not sign with Carlton and urging him to stay with GWS. Well, that's not tampering with the system and putting pressure on the kid. I don't know what is, and I'm just really not quite sure what business it is of Gillon McLachlan to be going out with public statements, telling people. Because I tell you what, I don't remember him doing it with Paddy Dangerfield. I don't actually remember that.
Nope.
No, because he had got a conflict of interest because they own GWS.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So
that's not right.
Yeah, I'm just more and more coming to the conclusion that Gillon McLachlan's he's just a dickhead, isn't he? He's just a
right.
dickhead.
I think you're right, Peter.
He is a dickhead.
He's just dumb.
Yeah, look, he was pretty boy put up there, and he was going to be Mr. Nice Guy and make everybody happy. But he is such, and you're right, he is such a dickhead. He's Burton-like. That he just keeps making wrong decision after wrong decision, or silly comment after silly comment, and he has no right to say that what he said, because he is publicly advocating, allegedly as the role of the AFL, but as the owner of GWS, they sponsor it, they pay all the money, and so it's self-interest. He's saying that cater to my self-interest, not on.
Yeah, has he been Burtonised, says DSG? Well, it's almost like a Libertini, isn't it? That's what he's...
A Libertini.
That's what he's had. He's had a Libertini. And,
except Gillon's trying to help his organisations, though.
Unlike I guess.
Well, they're all lame ducks, everything they own financially.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. The other announcement that came out of AFL House just in the last little while as well was it's now been confirmed that Geelong, if they finish in one of the top two positions, will be playing their qualifying final at the MCG. So,
wasn't it good that wasn't it good that Chris Scott came out middle of the year and said, "I'm not going to talk about it, but if I was going to talk about it, this is what I'd say."
Yeah,
and here we are. Bloody hell!
So there we are. The MCG will be the venue, and they've come regardless, so it wouldn't matter who they're playing. It's going to be the MCG. So happy days for whoever finishes fourth. If they're a Melbourne club like Collingwood or Richmond, that would be pretty good deal for those guys.
Have you ever seen a more arbitrary, bloody make it up as you go along competition than the AFL? Honestly,
no.
It's actually getting a bit ridiculous.
Well, it is farcical because it's the actual game itself. They change interpretations from week to week, and then during that, then end of each year they change rules, and then you've got idiots like this with, as you say, just making up times on the run and games on the run and doing you play here, you play there.
Mm-hmm.
it's a you would not think that this organisation could have actually managed to garner the type of money that it has from the TV station, given and it's the only thing that we have to give Gill some form of credit for, that they managed to do that, given the fact that they managed to F everything else up.
Yeah,
and then the other thing, sorry, mate.
I was going to say it's been a passive thing over about 20 odd years. They really sort of intervened in when the VFL was dying, and they wanted Richmond and some of those other clubs to live on, and they made the AFL and did all those things, and just inch by inch and creep by creep, they've just sort of got in and massaged and tried to manipulate the competition bit by bit. Now they've got to a point where they just keep doing it, and they really should just back the fuck away from everything. And they're not. I don't think they got here deliberately, but through the interventionalists of Vlad, and then followed up by the bumbling interventionalists of Gill, we are in a situation where the competition is an absolute farce.
And speaking of farces, there was also, of course, Hamish Ogilvie was on the podcast. I think it's Cal Toomey's podcast. Is that what do they call it? Road to the Draft or something like that?
Yep.
And he hit out at the AFL quite openly in relation to the priority pick, and that he thought that was not a great idea and had a real potential to compromise live trading. And so just when you think that, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I thought to myself, surely there was some kind of fine print thing that the AFL got organised earlier saying, well, just so that you all know, live trading is subject to any kind of AFL overrule with draft picks or anything we want to do. They haven't even done that.
No.
It's just been left wide open, and so now, the live trade, as we all know, is subject to a potential priority pick. Now, it may or may not happen, but so Hamish certainly had a crack at that today.
I heard that and I listened to that, and Hamish made an excellent point, and it's not just in the self-interest of the Adelaide Football Club. He made the point there's 5 or 6, I'm not sure whether it's 5 or 6, other clubs have also done live trading, and they've done that on the basis of they've done their analysis of what they've traded on the basis of that they expect to be in a certain position in the next year. Yep. And now, if they alter that by just arbitrarily giving picks here and there, then they are totally, and as Ogilvie said, it's not just the first round, it's the second round, the third round. Everything's moved by it. And so therefore you affect everybody. And therefore it will be a great discouragement to teams in future to do live trading, which is what the AFL is trying to encourage. So to talk about giving away picks to the Golden Coast, who they actually own again, a priority pick, well, that's just not on. It has to be out of the question, because you can't have live trading and then have no integrity about what you're going to get in return.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Macca. The problem is that they'll do it, I reckon. So what will happen is this year, when Adelaide has got the highest placed, pick from a future pick in a live trade draft, and what the AFL will do is they will do it this year, and then they'll go, it was really bad and we'll never do that again. So there'll only be one cut punished under this rule. It'll be us, because that's the way the AFL work.
So how the AFL going so far tonight?
Well, if you said something less than shit house, you'd be doing well.
Well, they should stop trying to make shit up, really.
Just as well there was no tribunal action. Otherwise, they could have really topped it off.
Yeah.
And I've been thinking too, what actually happened with Tippetgate? What do we do? Anyway, I've been probably opening up wild wounds, but what the fuck actually happened at the end of that?
We promised...
Captain, what did you cover up? How did we get hit harder than Melbourne and Essendon for drug taking and tanking?
Well, what we actually did, I've always been absolutely staggered by it, because what we actually did was tell the guy if he signed with us, we would actually take a penalty by letting him go for a second round pick. So we were actually, and that was actually forced upon us by Tippett's old man, who was actually controlling everything in the background. And John Reid did it on the side, thinking that nobody ever know about it, because the whole world knew about it, unfortunately. But it wasn't so much that we were trying to. I don't think we were. Well, yes, you are doing something that's against the rules. But when you compare that with our punishment that we got for that with what Essendon did, etc. It's and Carlton, etc. It's just totally disproportionate what we received because we got the same penalties as they got. In fact, even worse than Essendon, and for which I thought was not a minor breach, but a stupid breach of the rules.
Yeah, a stupid breach, and also hard. I'm pretty sure it was harder. It was harder draft sanctions than Melbourne too. Like it was pretty crap. And we coughed up early and said, "Yeah, no worries, come at us." So we copped harder penalties by going earlier than people that denied and fight it off. So this is just more in like this is the type of club management fakes that we thought that we weren't going to get any more from you, but we're just getting the same old drivel, the same old rollover, the same old dross. Do something, mate. Actually fight for us.
Well, I've actually really enjoyed the fact that the perpetrators or the instigators of all that situation are by and large still on board. Obviously, Triggy's not there anymore, but Chappie and the board are there without any retribution. I think that's a fairly good indication of the administration of our club at the moment, don't you think, in terms of accountability?
Because in the italics thing, they didn't know about it.
Yeah, that's very convenient, isn't it?
Anyway. Of course they knew about it.
Anyway, one thing, there was a couple of games on the weekend by a couple of individuals I just wanted to bring up, and that is the game of Charles Cameron for Brisbane, who was absolutely outstanding. He had an incredible year for Brisbane. And, of course, our own Darcy Fogarty, who had, as I'm sure we'll talk about later, had an outstanding game. So,
not good enough for a Rising Star nomination.
No, not quite good enough. But I put it out to social media, and I just wanted to, I thought I might put it to you guys and put it to the guys in the chat. And given the fact that Cameron was traded for pick 12 and that pick 12 was spent on Darcy Fogarty, do you think that this will go down as one of the great trades in terms of...
Everyone's a winner?
Everyone's a winner. What do you think?
It potentially could be that. Brisbane, no. I think that, put it this way, if we were get offered Cameron in his current form for pick 12, I'd throw it to them in a heartbeat for him. And so they've got their value for the pick 12. Now, Fogarty's given us a real lovely little taste of what we might expect in the future. And if that is what we're going to get out of Fogs, and, you know, you can't repeat it every game, but, you know, on the basis of reasonably regularly, well, it will be exactly what you just said, one of the great win-wins.
Yeah, when I say great trade, I mean a really, really finely balanced. So that it's the one that, you know, is balanced equally for both teams.
Yeah, and I think that the thing about that too is I don't reckon we would have done any differently had we got pick 5 or pick 6 or pick 8 for Charlie. We still would have gone for Fogarty. So it was definitely a Charlie for Fogarty trade, irrespective, I think. So
yeah, good point.
Because we obviously had Fogarty earmarked.
Yep, and the other point about Fogarty's game on the weekend, I don't know how you can possibly make Team of the Week, which is saying that these are the best performers in the whole AFL, and not get a Rising Star nom.
Do you know what I reckon? I reckon they probably mistakenly thought he wasn't eligible and never checked it.
It's the interesting thing is that he was eligible because he played 10 games last year, and the rules say you have to play no more than 10. But apparently the argument that was given to the lad from West Coast was the fact not so much that he played that well this game, the fact that he played most of the year in the A's. But that's not a very good argument. I mean, the point is...
I reckon he played a bit better than just okay on Sunday. I thought he was very good. He kicked 3 goals and, you know, filled that second ruck spot. So I thought he played pretty well on Sunday. And I think that you're right, Macca. It has... and they're renowned for giving body of work nominations. And he's gone... Yeah, he's played 20-odd games this year, averaged 10 possessions and a goal a game. And I think this was probably his best game of the year, and so the fact that he's been playing all year and doing okay, I guess, you know, it really is a body of work nomination more than anything else, I think.
Yeah, that's how I saw it. Yeah.
Also, how many times this year was it? 4 of his goals were, you know, marks and goals from a set shot. Am I right from my memory on that?
Yes.
How many times you reckon in the last 2 seasons would one of our key forwards taken 4 marks in a night and actually put away the 4 shots?
Well, it was interesting, Fiend. I thought about our discussion just last week, and we were talking about the value on the simple skill of being able to lead properly. Remember we were talking about that?
Yeah.
And you know, he shot. You know, I mean, it can be a very, very simple game when you can execute just 3 fairly what should be 3 fairly simple skills. That's 1, lead into space, 2, hit a 30-metre kick, and 3, kick a 40-metre goal.
Yeah.
That should actually be fairly simple, really. And they made it look simple. You know, they did. They made it look simple.
You would expect that AFL level players could execute that on a fairly regular basis, and I think Adelaide could be guilty at times with their list management of trying to mould a team out of a bits and pieces team, and having Darcy and Tex up forward, and Tex probably wasn't 100% right, but he played pretty well, I thought, anyway. But just watching them work, 2 genuine forwards, it makes you realise that for all Jenkins's strengths in terms of his physical attributes and all that sort of stuff, there's no substitute for a bloke who actually knows how to play football, is there?
No.
Well, you compare, of course, in Foggs, a genuine footballer against Jenkins, a manufactured footballer.
Well,
that's right.
To a degree he is, Macca, but he played football as a junior, and then he went to basketball, and then he came back and played footy. And let's face it, he was only rookie to Essendon, and they weren't that disappointed to let him go. And we've tried to make something out of nothing with Josh, and that's okay. You can try to do that, but we've persevered with that for quite a while, and you know we didn't take the opportunity to cash in on that Moneyball trade at the time, and you know I just feel like we're guilty, I think, as a club at times of trying to take not the scraps but the bits that we can get and mould it into something, rather than just play blokes in the positions that we know they can play in.
I reckon what's interesting, Thane, is that the whole perseverance with Jenkins, what it said to me is that mentally, as a club, we never ever got over losing Kurt Tippett, and we never ever got over losing, or the potential to lose, the structure which we were so wedded to, which was the dominant big forward who could chop out and play second ruck, which was Tippett's role.
Yep.
Jenkins was recruited specifically to fill that role.
Yes, he was.
And we have persevered with him because it's been a furphy for years now that you have to have a key forward stroke second ruck. And you know we've showed that you don't need that. You can actually live without that structure. But we've been wedded to it since Kurt Tippett. And
there are a couple of things that illustrate exactly your point, Pete, that you don't have to have that particular structure, that there are clubs that get by just by using guys that have got a reasonable lead, just to be a nuisance while the main ruckman's having a rest. So coming back to
Richmond used Sean Grigg.
That's a play I was trying to think of. Thanks very much. That is the example I was trying to use. Jenkins, I think, will obviously not be with Adelaide Football Club next year. I think the perfect club to try and trade him to would be Melbourne, who don't have a full forward. If we could get their second round pick for Jenkins, I'd be absolutely delighted.
No. He's a first round pick, Macca.
Yeah.
Do you reckon you'll get a first rounder for him?
Yeah.
The problem will be salary, because he's contracted, and so the bargaining position from the receiving club will be it'll be the haggling of who's paying the salary, and I think that will determine how high the draft pick is. If we want to dump his whole salary, which is going to be a significant, what's he got left? 2 years?
2 years.
I believe so.
That's $1 million. That someone's taking on.
Well, according to I don't know whether it's true, but I reported that it was 800,000 a year.
No, it's not 800.
I don't think that much. I'm just guessing, but okay. So if we say roughly 500, That's $1 million off our books, and so so I don't know that we'll. I think that will be the determining issue.
Yeah, you're probably right,
Well,
Pete.
But he's not going to suit every club. You really have to be trying to trade to maximise him. And he'll have obviously will have his say as well. But the best value will be out of a club that hasn't got a full forward.
Well, I don't think he'll go to any other state except Victoria, because I think that's where he sees his post-football career, and that's fair enough. And I think the main suitors in Victoria, I think, are Melbourne, as you point out, also Western Bulldogs and Essendon, I think. St Kilda maybe, but I think those three clubs are, and I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up at the Bulldogs, to be honest with you.
Although they've got young Norton's sprung out of the ground there in recent weeks, and he takes a beautiful high mark.
Yeah, but who's their other one? And who's their second ruck?
I'm struggling to think of that. So he could well suit them. But you're right; it'd be probably out of those three clubs.
But it's also like, apart from just getting down on JJ, it's actually also a pretty good move for us if we're going to be looking to the future, actually turning over people in our list around that age. They've still got some value so that we can actually put in some decent crop to come in for it. You know, he's going to get a better run. We're going to be a better side in their footy for it. It actually all makes sense for every party for JJ to go to one of Melbourne club, I think, this year.
Oh, Doc, you're absolutely spot on, and I think that probably this little bit of Jenkins discussion leads us into probably the final news topic that I was going to bring up, and that is the fact that we are in the news a lot at the moment, and that we're going to continue to be in the news in terms of our list management in the off season. And I can't think of the guy's name. There was a journo on the couch who said that he had it on pretty good authority that we'd basically just opened it up to open up the shop window to every club, and that all of our a lot of our experienced players were up for offer. So I think that probably the most publicised one in the last 24 has been Eddie Betts. Had the offer from the Gold Coast, which included a coaching contract as well, and which makes perfect sense when you think that part of the Gold Coast rescue package is going to potentially include the Darwin recruiting zone. So
it's outrageous. We've suffered enough.
I would be very surprised if it wasn't the case that Gold Coast are looking at recruiting Eddie as a coach stroke mentor to ready themselves for that potential.
Well, Channel 7 had an interview with Eddie on the news tonight, and they said they've got it straight from the horse's mouth what's happening next year. And the interview was really with Eddie almost walking to his car, and he said that he would say, "Will you be with Adelaide next year?" And his answer was yes, but that's up to the club. Now they've ignored that particular aspect, because I actually think that the Adelaide Football Club may well be in total agreement with him going to the Gold Coast, because if you keep playing Eddie next year, that limits the opportunity for all the other guys who would like to have a crack in that forward line, and there's about 3 or 4 of them that we would hope would develop as forward line players, and zap ones around the forward line. And Eddie is obviously going to slow down over the next couple of years, and I don't know what value we'd get for it, though. What do you think we would get as value if he did go there?
What did the Giants get for? What did Geelong get when the Giants took Stevie J? Was he picked up as a delisted free agent, or was he traded?
I got a feeling
yes, delisted free agent.
Was he a delisted free agent?
I think so. Yes.
He was told he wasn't required anymore. He got the shits, and then he went to Thingo.
Yeah, but was he actually delisted, or was he traded? I can't remember. I can't remember. Look, I reckon you would have to get a second round draft pick for Eddie, despite his age and despite the fact that he's probably only got 2 seasons left, because he's the best small forward in the competition, and probably top 3 small forwards ever in AFL history. Second rounder, in my opinion.
But if that's the Gold Coast, their second rounder is going to be like pick 20, around about pick 20 or 19. It depends, how the bids go. But around that pick 20 mark, do you think that they would part with pick 20 for Eddie at that age?
Well, I don't think it'll be that straightforward. I think we obviously are into Jack Lukosius in a big way, and if Eddie Betts was going to go up there, I think that will tie into that.
I think you're on the money there, and the other one, of course, is Greenwood. They've been talking about Greenwood possibly going there as well.
Yeah.
So I would, if it did occur that Greenwood went there and that Eddie went there, I'm sure that would be tied into the Lukosius situation.
Well, it's interesting. Lukos still hasn't re-signed, or I shouldn't say re-signed. He hasn't extended up there, so that's still just we hold out a little bit of hope that there's maybe something we can wangle, but it'll cause huge ructions if they were to lose their number 2 pick after 1 year.
Well, it'd only be offset if they got a package of seeming stars that came across,
and experience.
Favourite small forward.
Yep.
The experienced name players,
and a priority pick.
Well, that's the other, and the other thing about this too is, we've probably got 2 or 3 players that might go in a sort of a GWS style. We could package off, if there's no reason why JJ couldn't go to Gold Coast. Not that he, from Phoenix, not that he wanted to, but we talk about Greenwood. Alex Keith still hasn't re-signed. I've heard whispers that there's actually quite a few players at our club probably not getting another look in. Why wouldn't we give a spine or a critical mass to another club of players that are ready to play best 22 footy for them, and they get to build their culture and build a team of people that can play footy, and we get a couple of bits of elite back. It does make sense.
Well, absolutely. I mean, they need experience, and so it does make sense. I don't think you get Jenkins up there. I just on that too, Pete. Do you reckon the whole scenario of Lukosius coming back to Adelaide will be a salve for Adelaide when the AFL decide to give Gold Coast a priority pick? I think that whole thing will be convoluted. There'll be backroom conversations, and it'll end up because Adelaide will obviously spit the chewy at losing a spot on the ladder, or the draft pick ladder, and I think Gill will say, well, look, we'll facilitate a situation where you can offload a couple of senior players. We'll get you Lukosius back because we know that's what you want, and everything will be a 0-0 draw at the end.
Well, what you're suggesting sounds like something more out of a fiction magazine, and because it is being run by the AFL, it's very likely.
Well, that's right. It's so contrived. Let's rather than rebel against the system and always be upset that it's contrived against stuff, let's get involved in the contrived nature of this place and milk it for our own advantage.
I think that you're absolutely spot on, Fina. There's only one thing that would, I think, potentially stop that from occurring, and that's the fact that we're us. If we were Collingwood or Richmond or whatever, then you'd guarantee it. But it's us. But I think that if they want to give Gold Coast pick 2, how would it work out? Because I'm trying to think how 2. That.
Yeah, they get
and then
one after the first. Yeah, so they get 1 and 2.
And then ours would become 4, and Melbourne would get 3. That's how it would work, wouldn't it?
Yep.
As it now stands, and so I guess what you're selling is with 1 and 2 they can get Rowell and Anderson, the two close friends, who they can get up there and hopefully make them stick because they are close mates.
Yep.
Because if you separate them, you're finished. You're gonna come back, and then also they get a pick 4 as well, because there's no way that any of this happens without pick 3 or pick 4 as it would then be. That would have to be in the equation. But I think that it's every chance that could happen, Fane, that they would be talking about the fact that that Adelaide would be remonstrating with the fact that the live trading issue,
Yep.
the fact that excuse me, we're given no notice, and all of those things, and that we lay down and not make a fuss, and because the AFL own Gold Coast.
Well, and let's make no mistake, the AFL want live trading to work because they're trying to make an event out of the whole trade period and draft night and all that sort of stuff. So the last thing they need is a respected recruiter like Hamish Ogilvie getting on the blower and saying, well, this is a joke because the whole system's compromised. What it does beg the question, though, that maybe Stephen Trigg's only error when he contrived to hang on to Kirtley Tippett was that he didn't engage Dimitri early enough or directly. Had we gone to the AFL and said, look, this is what we want to do, they might have made it happen. So, silly trick.
But that is
well, the other problem was we were dealing with Sydney at the end, and they were still the AFL love child at that time.
Yeah.
For me, and obviously can say that bringing Luco home is fundamental to our rebuild.
Mm-hmm.
Fundamental.
Well, early in the season, I would have disagreed with him, Pete, because to me, when he was playing in the forward lines, he wasn't looking especially magic. But in the last few weeks, he's been playing in the back lines, and I think he's been playing it extremely well. He's started to pick the tempo of the game up, and I've watched a couple of games in which Gold Coast have been competitive for a while, and then get under massive pressure in their defence. And I've been very impressed with Lukosh. I think he's starting to really look like a footballer. The one that everybody was talking about that he would be, rather than the one that he looked at the beginning of the season.
Got a family connection there, guys, and he was home 6 to 7 weeks into the season, and he reported that the greatest shock and issue that he found was just the nature of the gut running and what was required, and it shocked him, it shocked his system, and it did take him some time. Even though he'd played a lot of SNFL football, it took him some time to adjust. So there was certainly a half-year adjustment period for him there, because he has a big tank anyway, and he does roam around the ground, and the reason why he's just so critical to a rebuild is that he's one of those guys, as we've said before, he's a Rolls Royce. When he's an experienced player, he's played 100 games, he will just put himself where he's needed. He'll either drift into half back, he'll play on a wing, he could go up through the midfield. He's the same height as Cripps. He could play in the midfield, and he obviously can play up forward as well. He is, as I said, the Rolls Royce, and so he's fundamental. So anyway, hopefully that happens.
And his disposal is excellent, Pete.
Oh yeah, he's absolute. He's gifted. He really is. A couple of other rumours that I saw floating around was from Essendon, Aaron Francis, potentially on the move back to the Crows, and also Orazio Fantasia is rumoured to be looking to get home to the Crows as well. So how we're going to bring all these guys in, I don't know. I'm sure we're not going to have the currency, but we'll just have to see what transpires.
What about Keith for Francis?
I'd do that in a heartbeat. Whether Essendon would do that, I don't know. But
yeah, I just feel like Keith's putting out the output right now. Essendon think they're going okay right now. They want to build. They want to build now. I think, it's a decent piece. It's an end game strategy and test. It's a good piece for a good piece. So I think it's probably a good move. Now look, another rumor I've heard is that what we're doing, and it's based off Hamish, and that we're actually looking to bring in Trent Burgoyne, the Peter Burgoyne's son, who is eligible for Port under father-son, but looks like we've got a bit of an eye on him. Apparently, we nominated him for the state combine and one of the SNAFL sort of future stars games and stuff. I think we've got a real big excitement appeal for him.
When you say that though, Donk, I mean, how can we can't get in particular rights on him though?
Well, I don't know what the
we can you can bid on him.
Yeah. And don't forget, there's players like Edwards and Jarman that the Port could have picked up if they decided to throw a late pick at him. So just depends on where and when we think he's worth it.
Hamish noted today that for all the bids we've put in, we've never ever got one, and he said he's determined one day to get one. He's determined that one day he's going to bid on a player. And
has any club ever won a bid?
It has actually happened, and I can't remember the name of the player, but it was around about the 30, 40 mark, and actually the players play reasonable footy for the club that he's at. And damn if I can remember the name of it, but it has happened once, Faye.
Yeah, right, okay.
No reason I know that I heard the club saying that they regretted that they didn't match the bid at the time.
Yeah.
So anyway, guys, I think it's pretty clear there's going to be plenty of turnover in the off season, and of course that wonderful term that Justin Reid loves, organic growth. I think we'll get. I do think we'll get plenty of growth from underneath the SNFL team. Is a treat, and isn't it wonderful to see them back in the winners list, and how they've managed to engineer that now they don't have to carry Sauce, Dougie, and Gibbs. When they had those players playing, they were losing by 30 points to the bottom team, and at that stage they were top. Now suddenly those guys are gone and they're back in the winners circle. So great to see the Sandful team, those kids. Geordie Butts, another great game, and I think he had mid-20s possessions again. So yeah, no.
Ogilvy gave him a big rack, Pete.
Mm.
He said he's come along a lot quicker than he thought he would.
He's a star, mate. He is an absolute star. You can get excited about Geordie Butts.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I wouldn't mind before the end of the year to see more Butts in the first grade side.
Well,
I don't think he's going to crack the seniors.
Here we go. Why on earth though? And in all seriousness, and I know I take life too seriously sometimes, but why on earth, when you had a potential matchup with Oscar Allen, who's only a second-year player, he's actually the same weight as Butts, and he's actually a bit shorter, and he's their like their forward second ruck. We play Andy Otten, who's 32 and spent. Allen kicks 3 goals and had his best. What if West Coast Eagles can trust a kid like that to be their second ruck forward? Why can't we trust Geordie Butts to debut and just play on him and just follow him around all day?
And therein lies the difference between the two clubs.
Geordie's 198 centimetres.
In a heartbeat.
Yeah.
And then when we do make a gutsy move and bring in a kid like we did with Benny Davis in a graveyard match, we give him one game. One game.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Lockie Murphy's running around like an unregistered dod doing, a hell of a lot of fuck all. And we keep kicking it on Lockie Murphy's head because we think he's a lead up forward. And we've got a poor prick sitting in the twos, ready-made, and he doesn't get fucking picked. I can't work it out. Jesus Christ.
Anyway, I don't know. Anyway, so that's I guess that's a long-winded way of saying that's the news for today.
Well,
it was all
I'm in the news section. That's fantastic.
You like that?
all right.
No news this week either.
We started talking about the match. Let's keep talking about the match, shall we? So me and Macca have had our say. What do you guys reckon?
Where you go, Donkey?
Look, it was one of those games where I was sitting there watching it going, this is a really great first half. I'm really pleased that we've still got some good footy in us, but never giving into the belief. And then a couple of minutes after half time, sort of going, there we go, there it is. And but we found a little bit more and kept playing hard, especially with Rory off the ground. So overall, it was a really good performance, and that performance probably would have won us another 5 games this year. Probably would have won us. Hawthorn could have won us against Geelong, could have won us against North Melbourne, could have won us against Essendon, could have won us against the Bombers, and you do that, and suddenly we're right in the thick of it. But unfortunately, just like the entire Crows performances since 2017, it's just been sporadic, piecemeal. And the brightest spark out of the weekend obviously was Fogarty, tearing the game apart and showing us all what he's got, and just the frustration of going, why hasn't he been playing most of the year? What other, the two brightest spots I reckon we've had on our club this year, probably 3, Riley O'Brien getting a proper crack and showing us what can be done around the ground. Apparently after you tap the ball, you can actually run around and catch it and kick it. and Alex Keith stepping up for Doty, and then Fogarty just going, "Hey, I am that bloke you all thought I was, and I shouldn't have been playing in the twos, and I should never have been playing in the back line. I'm a lead up forward. I can catch the ball. I get the game now. Kick it to me." So just depresses you. Like, what about Chase Jones? Imagine Chase Jones with 5 games under his belt, this year, or 6 or 7, and going next year. What's Jordy Gallucci got to do? He actually plays pretty good when he gets the ball and gets a bit of a run at it. I know a lot of people are down on him, but I think they are wrong. And, and we're still getting, I like Murphy's effort. He tries really hard and runs around, but what's produced at the end of it, not quite always a lot. Let's give some guys with probably a higher skill base, let's give them a run and see what they can produce.
Funny makes a good point too on the speaker chat. Sorry, Pete, just to butt in.
Yep. And
I think it's a criticism that we've levelled at the club at times, that Fogs at no stage this year has actually been a standout at SANFL level. He hasn't kicked 5 or 6. So SANFL form shouldn't be the barometer, because often they're not played in the right positions, as we keep banging on about. And to say that someone like Douglas deserves a spot because he's had 32 in the twos, I think it's completely irrelevant. Because there's been times, and Fogarty is a classic example, where we picked Fogarty because for no other reason than it was his time to get picked. Certainly wasn't on form, and away he goes. So when the club say that they reward form, I think that's bullshit.
But the comment
otherwise, Mitch, you go ahead. No, you.
I was just going to say that was a very valid point though about Douglas, because it doesn't matter if he got 15, 32 or 97 possessions in the SAFL. He's only going to get 12 when he comes up to the AFL, because that's what he does.
And we've said that consistently, haven't we, Peter? That we know what we're going to get from Richie. He's got exposed form. It's not a secret, So I don't know why they keep going to that
14,
well.
Got his 14 possessions on
exactly.
the weekend, but it's the Mitch Grigg rule as well. I mean, Mitch Grigg will go out there and get 40 possessions a week in the SANFL, and has proved that he can't play AFL. So anyway, my thoughts on the game. Look, it was a good effort, and I'm not going to can the guys, but it was one of those games that I never ever really felt like we were going to take control of, and I felt that every time, I felt like we were that little kid, where the big kid's got the hand on the head, and you're taking swings, but they're just holding you, at an arm's length away. Yeah. That's what it felt like to me. I felt like we were taking swings at West Coast, but they had us at arm's length and just seemed to have another gear to go to if they needed to. Particularly right at the end when we got, I don't know if you noticed, we got within, I think after Brad Crouch's goal, and I don't think after that bounce, I don't think we touched the ball for about a good 2 minutes after that. So they just seem to have another gear to go to. Quite apart from Fogarty's performance, which Phil talked about, I thought Matt Crouch had his best game for the year.
Yeah.
I thought he did a lot of good things. So he was really good, and I thought Luke Brown was excellent as well. And most of the defence was good. Jake Kelly was good again. I thought Daniel Talia had probably his best game for the year. So there was some encouraging performances. But I think that what you saw was a performance that playing group is capable of. And I think that was probably the maximum that it's now capable of, and it's just not quite going to be good enough anymore. And that playing group will, I think, now be dismantled at the end of this year, to a significant degree. I'm sorry, I've had the lurgy this week.
We've heard.
And so it's pretty much the swan song, I think, for that playing group. A number of those guys will be moved on or traded out in some way, shape, or form. So I think that what you saw was what they're capable of. I don't think they're capable of much more than that. I think that was probably a roundabout maximum. But no, they were efficient. They played a lot of good football. They left good space in the forward line for Fogarty and Walker. And I thought that our midfield was, pretty good, given the fact that they'd been smashed for the last few weeks. And I thought Sloaney was pretty good till he went off. Some of Sauce ruck work was we can criticise Sauce all we like for his work around the ground, but you can't criticise his ruck craft. Some of his tap ruck work was really, really good to watch. So Hardigan had another day to forget, and he may well be one on the trade table. So they're my thoughts.
Well, I agree about the lobotomy kid Hardigan. He's had 2 shockers in a row, and I know that he did a couple of good things during the game, but he kick chasing. He's wandering away from his man and just giving his man. There's one there where he gave Darling a 30-metre start. You can see him just drifting up the field towards the play, not worrying about where his man is. And look, he's not the greatest thinker out there. He just worries me.
No, I think it was fairly clear, and this has happened before. I know Hawthorn were really good for doing this with Ruffy. They'd make sure that Ruffy took Talia and just set him out somewhere away from the play, and then go through Bruce or Gunston or someone like that. And I just felt like that Kennedy was a little bit of a decoy, and because Talia looked fairly good, and I think that they just exposed Darling against Hardigan time and time again. And,
good summary.
And of course it hurt us.
Well, totally on the money, Pete. Totally on the money. That's exactly what happened.
So other than that, I'm not gonna can them. I thought they brought effort. They brought 100% effort. I couldn't criticise that, and they were brave. But when, as I said to somebody the other day, when you've got people saying things like, "Oh, Adelaide didn't lose any friends today, and they were brave," well, that's when you know you're not a top 8 team.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, it was really good trying. Yeah,
I don't necessarily subscribe to that. I think you could safely say that Adelaide might not be a top 4 team, but you have Rory Sloane in that team for 4 quarters instead of 2, and you take your chances rather than commit a couple of turnovers. And we all know what scoreboard pressure can do. So, when you look at the way West Coast walked off that ground at the end of the game, Peter, I think it's a fair feat to say that they always had it as at arm's length, because I think you would find that most of the West Coast players would feel that that's the hardest game they've had all season physically. And so I think you've undersold the effort somewhat.
And actually, I think one very valid point, and you're making a good case, Shane, because after the footy classified last night, I can't remember the name of the show that Cornsey does with Vince.
SA Footy or whatever it is, Footy Plus.
SA Footy, yeah. Look, Vince pointed out we lost the game really by allowing them to get 4 extremely easy goals in a space of 9 minutes, just after Rory Sloane went off. In that, and the interesting part about that was that every one of those goals was due to laziness by a player not checking. And the point that Vince was making, this wasn't because the West Coast was so good that they overran us in that particular period.
Yeah, we lost concentration.
We lost concentration, sloppiness, untidiness, not doing the things that we had done right previously up until then and after that particular point. But we had that particular 10-minute period where we broke all the rules of what we should be doing and not checking, not being tight, etc., etc. And they got very, very easy goals, and then totally out of the context of how the rest of the game was played, and that was really our fault, and it was because we had that mental lapse, and it cost us dearly.
We also made some key blues towards at the death as well. Lairdy missing a mark, Talia missing a mark, Matty Crouch streaming into the forward line and kicking a mongrel. There were 4 or 5 opportunities and a couple of key turnovers and skill errors, I think, that really cost us in the end. But no one could suggest that the Crows didn't give it 100%, and that's probably what we've been screaming for since the bye. It's probably the first real 4-quarter effort that we've seen from Adelaide since the bye.
Yeah, no question about that. You certainly couldn't criticise the effort that they brought.
I felt like and I think it highlighted the fact that we're a classy midfielder away from having a decent midfield. I think we just lacked a little bit of class, and I don't care what anyone says. Brad Crouch is not our classy midfielder. I'm not saying he's not a good midfielder or he's not a serviceable midfielder or he doesn't have a place in our midfield or someone else's midfield, but he's not the silk. Too many of his possessions are rushed and forced, and his decisions are poor as a result. But his brother directed play when we got possession, and I thought it was back to 2017 for Matt Crouch. It was his best game for 18 months, I'd say.
Yeah, he was terrific. He had a very, very good game, and I've certainly been critical of him over the last sort of month or so. But he was terrific, he deserved his coach's votes.
Well, it makes you wonder how they're playing these midfielders, because we've seen a real dip in Matt's contested possession count, and Brad's for that matter, in the last few weeks, and yet Matt in particular was up again in the contested possession count. Now, to me, that's more a game plan thing than a desire thing, wouldn't you say?
Well, the one thing I think that really stood out, and Pete did touch on it before when he was doing his summary, and that was the difference between Jacobs and Roddy O'Brien is Roddy O'Brien puts his heart and soul into it with not much finesse at the end of it, whereas Sauce, he hasn't got that spring and that leap and all the rest of it, but he's got that 200 games or 199 games of experience, and he gave some great service to our midfielders. So I think that was a big difference in terms of the midfielders. It was we were given first use by some of his chaps were exquisite actually.
Yeah, you couldn't fault his ruck craft at all.
No, there are other weaknesses in his game, but that particular aspect I think helped our midfielders tremendously.
We were critical on Sunday night, Pete and Macca, about the fact that people mentioned that Sauce tired after half time, and we pointed out that they had an opportunity to manage their ruck situation over the last few weeks with two fit first-class ruckmen, but instead they chose to run Riley O'Brien into the ground and then play Sauce in a critical match on a big ground at Optus on a hard deck first up, and of course he's going to tire. So again, an example of this conservative list management and squad management that we have at the moment at the club.
Yeah, but we kept our structure.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right, isn't it?
Yeah.
We had an opportunity to play Sauce last week in a less critical game against St Kilda, and running. Geez, Pete, mute button, dude. In a game that was less critical, that he could have run himself in and then had a bit of match fitness under his belt before the West Coast game, but we've brought him in fresh. It's just poor.
Yeah, it's
poor squad management.
There's no reason at all why they should. They could have prepared themselves for that West Coast game by saying to Sauce, right, get some air into your lungs against St Kilda.
Yep.
It would have been a good battle because they've had a good ruck. Can't remember the lad's name now, but he's a good player, and that would have been a good battle for Sauce, and it would have just helped him to get some run into the legs leading into that big game in Perth. It's a very good point. As you say, don't understand some of the decision making.
Can I ask you guys a question? Pikey keeps, and I hope I got the expression right, but something along these lines. He keeps saying that we lost field position, and I don't understand what he's meaning by it.
So what he likes to do, Macca, is their plan A, their route one, their plan A is to get the ball into the forward 50 and lock it in and play the game forward of centre and, set up a zone behind that, but lock it in, get repeat 50 entries and eventually score and just, play a crowded game, but a game inside 50. Is that fair, Fane? Is that a fair comment?
Yep, absolutely. He's very much the soccer style approach, where you'll shift the grid up and down the ground, and what you want to do is have that grid, basically underpinning a like repeated entries or a sustained period in an attacking position, and that's what. Whereas a team like Richmond couldn't give a stuff. They're all about ball movement. We're all about numbers. It's a numbers game for Pikey.
And what we saw, particularly in the first half, was a massive difference or differential in the inside 50 count. So the ball was very much played in West Coast half, their attacking half.
Yep.
And so that's Pikey saying that that we were conceding field position, and if the game's played in, and that was where, full credit to our defence. They were fabulous, really. Pretty much all the defenders played particularly well because they were under siege, and there was a lot of inside 50s from West Coast, and we were fortunate that we weren't further behind. Other than the fact that, as I said, Talia played very well, and really I felt that the only position. Well, we lost two positions. We lost the Darling-Hardigan battle. That was a difficult one, and Oscar Allen got away from Andy Otten as well. But other than that, I thought that we were really good defensively, and so that kept us in the game, really.
One thing that Fiend's been saying for quite a while, and I watched very, very closely on the weekend, and that was Kelly. And I thought he played an excellent game in terms of what he did in terms of preventing his forward getting the ball and getting the ball himself. But Fiend's been critical that he is at times extremely slow to move the ball on, even when there's an opportunity to do so. And I'd watch him very closely, Fiend, and I think you're right. I think that he does miss opportunities by wanting not to make an error and taking too much time with his kick.
I think what's a giveaway for Kelly is the fact when other blokes have got the ball and when the game's been a little bit frenetic for a few minutes, Jake's flapping his arms up and down going, calm down. And I think he's actually projecting a bit because I don't think he can actually keep up with a fast-paced game. And there are times when he's telling blokes to calm down when really a fast break is on. And so I just don't think Jake's got it in him to think quickly enough to see those aggressive ball-moving opportunities. He'll look around and he'll check all the options, and then he'll do exactly the same as he always does, which is kick it down the line or short it up with a slow switch. They're the only two things you'll ever see from Jake.
That's exactly what he did.
Anyway, but he's been one-on-one. He's been very good.
Yeah, and look, at the end of the day, Jake Kelly was a rookie pickup. He was overlooked by Collingwood under father-son. We picked him up as a rookie. We've brought him on, and the reality is that you're going to get, not every player is perfect. Jake Kelly does a lot of good work for us defensively, and so I guess you take the positives, and it may well be a coach. If you're going to say it's a coaching thing, maybe, but yeah, I don't know whether he'll develop much past that.
But there's a case to say that there's room for a Jake Kelly in our defence because of his excellent one-on-one defensive work. If our small defenders give him options, run off him, we tend to spread away from a bloke like Kelly or a bloke like Talia or Hardigan for that matter when they've got the ball. We're all spread away from him. What happened to the good old-fashioned, a bit of a run pass for the handball to the skillful player? I mean, there's still room for that in the game, isn't there?
Well, absolutely. And so I agree, they should help him out a little bit more in that regard.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, listening to Ogilvy, the up-and-comers that we've got in the back lines, and that we've mentioned them before, he made reference to the fact that these boys are dashers that will dash out of the back line. So this may, in the long run, be the solution to it.
So final thoughts. We've got Collingwood coming up, you blokes. And obviously it's a critical game in terms of our final 8 aspirations. You would imagine that the boys will get backed in. I couldn't see any unforced changes, to be perfectly honest with you. Although there's probably one or two that I'd like to make. But I think we'll pretty much take the same 22 into the Collingwood game.
I hope that Chase Jones can push Dougie out. Another poor game from Dougie, and hopefully they'll give Chase a go. And I'd feel pretty confident this week against Collingwood. I think they've still got quite a few major outs, and we can bring that same effort that we brought last week. Then we'd have to be a reasonable chance against Collingwood, I would think.
I'd support that. In terms of watching Collingwood nearly every week, I don't think they're playing particularly well at all, and they're playing way below their best. And I think that if, as you say, if we bring that same type of effort and keep a little bit more concentration and don't have those lapses, but even with a lapse or two, we might still get up. I think. They've got an outstanding ruckman in Grundy, and they've got a very good midfielder in Treloar, and they've got a couple of other blokes that side bottom, etc., that play very well. But apart from that, they're actually a fairly honest team that at their best play well, and at the moment not playing quite at their best. So I think we can beat them.
Well, they've really lost their X factor, haven't they? They've lost DeGoey and they've lost Stevenson, and that was their those medium-sized,
they are X factors,
defensive X factor type players, and so that's been losing those two have been huge for them. But they've, and I agree, Macca, they haven't been at their best, but they still have an extremely dangerous, midfield with Treloar and Pendlebury and side bottom and Adams, and the list goes on, and still a very good side once they get up and running with Grundy as well. So we'd have to be at our very best.
Yeah, great.
Donkey.
Just who knows? We're getting Dr. Jekyll or Mr. Hyde on Saturday. So if we get the good Crows, then we win. We get the bad Crows, and we go down by 10 goals. But the season's on the line. It's a really big game, and it'll be really important to watch us stand up. So I'm not expecting it.
Not expecting what, Tom?
Us to produce a performance that wins.
Look, I tend to agree with you, Donkey. I don't see us getting up in this game. I think that it's been quite a while since we've put up the effort that we put up against West Coast, and there's nothing to support the fact that we'll back it up. I know our season's probably on the line because Western Bulldogs in Ballarat's going to be a big ask. But I think Collingwood travel very well. Their record at Adelaide Oval is excellent. And despite the fact that they're probably tailed off a bit in form and down a couple of players, they've got a bit to play for as well in terms of their finals aspirations. And I actually think we'll probably lose by 3 or 4.
You don't think that Sauce's 200th will be any inspiration to the boys at all?
Oh, I don't think. Well, I don't think.
That's why he's not going to get 6 goal loss.
I don't think a bloke's 200th game makes you run any faster for the ball, Macca. To be honest with you,
I totally agree. I just thought I'd ask the question.
Yeah, it might get you fired up for the first 30 seconds, but after that, it's a game of football, isn't it?
No, when you're out there, honestly, you don't think anything like that at all. You just don't. All you're thinking about is get the ball yourself.
Look, I'm sure Sauce will be thinking about it, but I'm just as sure that Brody Grundy brings half of his A game, and he will expose Sauce just the same as he always does for his lack of ground ball. And see, here, this is where my criticism extends, because we could have played Sauce against St Kilda and against West Coast and freshened up Riley O'Brien, who would have been a far better matchup against Brody Grundy. And yet, here we are with an underdone Jacobs last week and totally mismatched Jacobs next week against Grundy. So there's a lot of blokes getting paid a hell of a lot of money to try and manage a squad, and they don't seem to be able to make any sort of proactive decision whatsoever.
Well, you only have to look at who's in charge of football.
Yeah, some dickhead. So me, I don't reckon they'll get up. But obviously I hope they do, but I don't think they will. It would be nice to see the boys at least in week 1 of finals. But having said that, if it's not the young lads getting finals experience, then I guess you could argue, what's the point? We may as well get an extra couple of weeks off and freshen up for 2020.
Yep, good point.
Well, Pete, something's wrong with your mic, mate.
Test.
No good.
No,
he sounds right.
No good. All right. Donkey, how about we look at some competition, shall we?
Sure.
Oh. How are we looking here?
There we go.
I'm getting support from the chat for my audio feed. So.
Yeah, no, it was my little mixer just got a little bit tired and just needed a kick up the bum.
Oh,
Way we go, Donk.
yeah, look, pretty disappointing all round for everybody involved with the Dream Team. Everyone's a bit sad that Donkeys, Magoos, who were coming to the final second, have gone out in straight sets. So, so I'm devastated, and nobody's going to know who's going to win the competition because I've taken my bat and ball and got to go home. But big week of preliminary finals. Dylan, who went through from the first semi into the prelims against Mick Spuds, who knocked me off this week. So Mick, who I saw floating around in the chat on Sunday night. I don't know if you're listening or on the chat tonight, but good game, and I'm really happy for you. And really support you.
Look, I support Mick because Mick was actually our inaugural Patreon. He was the first bloke to support the CrowCast on Patreon. So sucked in, Donk. I'm on Mick's side.
Oh, see, mate, you are like the commissioner. Jesus. Anyway, so we've got so Dylan, Mick Spuds there. It's going to be a big one. And then we've got Sam Crow and Callan the Badman. Callan, if you're there, make yourself known in the chat, because I don't think I've got your name written down in the post wherever I've got it. So, make yourself known. So there's a big week of prelim finals coming up. Obviously, it doesn't matter anymore now that I'm out, but good luck to whoever wins. As we come over to the tipping, we'll just stall for a second as I log in because, I'm that organised. Mick Spuds on top again here too. We're going to go to the stewards here. Anyway, Mick Spuds 121, 1 point clear, 8 for the round, huge thing. Oh, Moyley, how good is he? 120, 8 for the week, coming good. Not sure, I can't read that name. Who's next? It's like Naikai Nu or someone. Anyway, they're on 118, only 7 for the week, so sliding back hard. Bayside Crows, DSG in 5th. J-Mac in 6th, Megan V 7th, Joel in 8th, Paulie C, Orion, Shortman, Treeman, then the Phoenix coming in at 13, and then Matt in at 14. So, that's how we're going for the week. Phoenix, Matt and I all got 3 for the week, so we're obviously not tipping very well, probably meaning by not putting the send button. And that's where we are for the moment. Couple of rounds to go. Anyone's game.
Very good, Donkey. Very good. And look, I think we might. Macca, have you got any sweets going on? Or
well, yeah, we've covered them all, but I would just like to add one, just the one. And that's, no music in it. I just have to bash the AFL and its review system of the goal system. We had the classic one on the weekend when they actually reviewed the wrong incident and deciding whether it was a goal or not. And I think they've hit rock bottom. You have to say it. They're fucking stupid. That's all you can say. And to actually review the wrong incident when you decide it, they're just rock bottom. That's it. You're stupid. Smack.
It's a shit show. It really is. The whole competition's a joke.
Yeah. When Test cricket can detect, a minuscule part of sound of a 5 centimetre ball touching a wooden bat, with less than half a millimetre of contact, when that can detect that little bit of sound, but we can't get a foot-long ball that's really round going past the foot-wide post or someone's hand, it's actually ridiculous.
Never mind. Look, I think we'll wind it up there. Thanks very much to everyone who's listened in to us on Spreaker tonight and also joining us on Facebook and YouTube. We really appreciate everyone listening in. Don't forget to support our sponsors, Ryan at Smith Partners Real Estate up there at Golden Grove. Also the boys at Down to Earth Electrical. Their links to their respective websites are on aflcrowcast.com. Don't forget too that our open letter to the club is still open for signatures. We intend to keep that running until the end of the minor round and dish it off to Shuts, who'll probably chuck it in the bin over the bye before the finals. reporting also that as of today, we still haven't received any green light for releasing our interview with Andrew or our questions to the club. I got to say, it's pretty disappointing, to be honest with you. It's one of those situations where I know they're busy, but this was fan engagement, and this is exactly what the fans have been looking for. And I'm not particularly impressed by it. I don't know how you blokes feel about it, but it's been about 5-6 weeks.
Oh, and the rest of it.
Well, the thing is that you give up your time to go down there. That's the thing. I mean, everyone's time's valuable, and to then just have it sort of basically stored in their in tray for 6 weeks is, to me, it is a little bit disrespectful.
Yeah, and look, we jotted down notes for the questions that we had time to ask, and we had an 8-minute interview with Andrew. So there were other questions that we didn't get to that we asked them to answer, but I would have thought that they could have cleared the interview and they could have cleared the answers that we gave them our notes for. That would have taken all of 10 minutes. So, yeah, maybe, the club just doesn't like agitators, Pete. What do you reckon?
Sounds like it, I would say.
Sounds like it to me, but that's okay. We'll soldier on. We've never made any apologies for being frank and honest with our support for the Crows Footy Club, and we'll continue to do so. Thanks very much, everyone, for listening in. We will probably not have the rev up this week because my son's still in bloody Queensland, the slacker. So join us again on Sunday evening at 7 o'clock for the wrap, where hopefully we're talking about a Crows victory over Collingwood. In the meantime, thanks, Donkey and Macca.
No worries, mate. Good night.
And thank you, Peter. Obviously struggling with the cold there, mate. I hope you're feeling better soon.
Thanks, mate. Gentlemen, good evening.
All right, we'll catch you on Sunday night for the wrap.
Cheers, bye.
Yeah, night all.